It's good to see you again in VNA News. I'm Vĩ Hằng from Hanoi with the major stories.
Vietnam active at UN Human Rights Council. OECD hails Vietnam's impressive agricultural reforms. Da Nang plans to open new river tourism programs.
The Vietnamese delegation took an active role in the just concluded 30th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva by reiterating Vietnam's continued stance on dialogue and collaboration with all nations over the world. Ambassador Nguyễn Trung Thành, head of Vietnam's permanent mission to the United Nations, delivered a number of important speeches at final debates on October 1st to 2nd. Focusing on how to ensure and promote human rights and the needs for technical support in regional countries. Mr. Thành also reiterated Vietnam's viewpoint that cooperation and support should conform to basic principles of international law and the United Nations Charter in order to bring peace, prosperity, and social harmony for sustainable development to all countries. The 30th session passed 21 out of 32 draft resolutions by way of consensus, which concentrated on issues of great concern in the fields of human rights protection and promotion. Besides, participants passed 11 resolutions on continuous issues, including those on Syria. The 30th session also marked 2/3 of Vietnam's 3-year tenure as an official member of the Human Rights Council and Vietnam's 2 consecutive years working as ASEAN coordinator in the Human Rights Council, contributing to promoting image and role of the bloc in the UN's largest forum on human rights. A delegation of the Supreme People's Court, led by Chief Judge Trương Hòa Bình, has attended the 8th Asia-Pacific Region Forum in Vladivostok City, Russia. Addressing the event, Chief Judge Bình stressed the significance of the forum to economies in the Asia-Pacific region. The forum has been an international venue to share experience, study in the novelties in the legal and economic systems of the countries of the region, and to discuss vital issues of the judicial protection of rights. Themed national and international regulations on customs relations, the forum focused on national economic integration and customs law, and coordination between countries to settling customs-related disputes. The forum has gathered leading judicial officials from regional countries and representatives of ministries and state bodies, of business and legal science circles, to exchange experience in order to promote justice, protect citizens' rights, and ensure economic security, he said. This year's event brought together representatives from Vietnam, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, China, Kazakhstan, the Philippines, and the host country. Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng has approved a plan to build 25 bridges to replace weak structure nationwide, with loans provided by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA.
Total investment valued at nearly 1.7 trillion Vietnam dong, equivalent to $75.6 million. The government asked the Ministry of Transport to complete investment procedures for the bridges and ensure the investment does not exceed the JICA loans. The programs to replace weak bridges on highways has been implemented in 2 phases, with 144 bridges being built in Phase 1 and 82 others scheduled for construction in Phase 2.
Vietnam's agricultural reforms have created impressive results over the past 2 decades, helping the country to establish its firm position on the global agro-food markets.
In its review of agricultural policies in Vietnam, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) underlined that Vietnam has become the world's largest exporter of cashews and black pepper, the second largest exporter of coffee and cassava, and the third largest exporter of rice and aquatic products. The report said the Đổi mới Renewal Program, launched in the mid-1980s, has helped spur the country's production growth, reduced the proportion of undernourished people from 46% in 1990 to just 13% in 2014, one of the strongest improvements on the global scale. Economic reforms have generated great results in the Vietnamese agricultural sector, as farm production more than tripled between 1990 and 2013, lifting rural incomes, reducing poverty, combating undernourishment, and sending agricultural exports soaring. Looking forward, the report suggested that Vietnam should work to build on these achievements while addressing long-term challenges posed by slower production growth rates, declining commodity prices, and limited land for further expansion. The country needs to improve its policy environment to enable investments that will allow the farming sector to continue to adapt to opportunities created by rising demand and the challenges of climate change and limited resources.
Vietnam earns over $1 billion from Brazil and an additional $1 billion from Mexico in export revenues over the past 8 months of this year.
The General Department of Customs said by the end of August, the country made its way to 27 markets with export revenue of more than $1 billion each, 2 more markets higher than the number of last year's same period. Main export items to Brazil included telephones and components at $373 million, footwear at nearly $160 million, and garments at more than $51 million. Mexico primarily imported telephones and components, almost $385 million, footwear nearly $153 million, and computers and electronics and components more than $100 million from Vietnam. Currently, 4 American markets recorded import value of more than $1 billion worth of Vietnamese products. The US remained the largest export market of Vietnam at $21.85 billion, $3.44 billion higher than the same period last year. Canada, the 4th export market in America, the country posted import value of $1.625 billion.
The Department of Culture, Sports and Tourism of Da Nang City has announced it will work with related parties to open new river tourism programs in an effort to diversify its offerings. Tours will bring tourists visiting Culture Village K20, Ngũ Hành Sơn Mountain, Eastern Carving Village, Nam Mô Cultural Cluster, Cẩm Nê Met Village, and the Tuy Loan Village Temple. The department considers river tourism a strong advantage for the city, as it gives visitors more choices. The development of boat tours along Han River, where guests can enjoy the local scenery, is expected to earn the city's tourism sector more revenue. The central coastal city of Da Nang lies within easy reach of the country's best heritage icons, including Phong Nha Kẻ Bàng in Quảng Bình Province, former Imperial Hue City, Hội An Ancient Town, and My Sơn Sanctuary in Quảng Nam Province. The city hosted 2.2 million tourists, of whom 600,000 were foreigners, over the first half of this year, showing 24% growth compared with last year. Having performed water puppetry at his residence for 3 years, puppeteer Phan Thanh Liêm has made its home an attractive destination for traditional art lovers. Join us in a call to his house and enjoying the unique art.
Amazingly, this water puppetry performance is staged by Liêm alone, whereas traditional shows at theaters are carried out by a group of at least 3 puppeteers. Liêm is able to carry on his performances for around 30 minutes. He has narrowed the traditional large water puppetry stage to make it easier for him to go on tour.
You must have a passion for the water puppetry if you want to perform it well. Moreover, you have to be strong enough to pull a rod in water to control the puppets.
đi lại dưới nước rất là vất vả, mỗi tay một con.
Liam is the 7th generation in his family to earn his living as a puppet sculptor and performer. He always takes pride in preserving water puppetry for posterity.
My father, Phan Văn Ngải, was the first to introduce water puppetry to Poland in 1980. 4 years later, he went on tour in France. My father was the first to invent a mini water puppetry stage, which is being used widely by theaters on tour.
Mr. Liam reserves a separate room to house his puppets, making the place a mini museum of thousands of exhibits passed down from his ancestors. Chu Teo, an intelligent, robust and elegant young man, herdsmen and farmers are typical figures, recalling the poetic and peaceful scene of Vietnam's traditional villages in front of audiences. Vietnamese artists with their skillful hands and colorful puppets tell stories of unique customs and hard-working farmers back home. The shape of the puppets remains unchanged from those used at the dawn of water puppetry 10 centuries ago.
I have a collection of more than 1,000 puppets. Many of them were inherited from my father and grandfather.
Blandine Lepage, who is an on-the-job trainee at a newspaper office in Hanoi, visited Liam's residence to learn about the traditional art form.
I'm very impressed by Liam's puppet collection. The collected puppets are very colorful. I tried pulling the strings to control them. It's amazing.
Puppets are made of pine, as that type of wood is light, making it easy to float. Normally, it takes sculptors months to have a dry pine section and several weeks to carve and paint them.
Puppet making must go through many steps. Sculptors have to polish and paint a puppet after shaping it. After that, they use other materials and tools to assemble the parts of the puppet. All the steps demand great patience.
Liam's activities are part of the Vietnamese Artist Circle's joint efforts to preserve water puppetry and prevent it from fading into oblivion. Water puppetry is believed to date back as far as the 11th century, originating in the villages of the Red River Delta region of northern Vietnam. Today's Vietnamese water puppetry is a unique variation on the ancient Asian puppet tradition. The traditional shows are performed in a waist-deep pool. Puppeteers, who are normally hidden behind a screen, use a large rod to control puppets under the water. Vietnamese troops bring folk songs and traditional musical instruments, such as the monochord and bamboo flute, to the stage.
And that's all we have for this bulletin. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye from Hanoi.